afternoon. In today's class, we will be beginning with Unit 5. Unit 5 is application layer. So by now, we have seen the layers from bottom to top. If we go, we have seen the physical layer. Then we have seen the data link layer, network layer, and transport layer. So if you remember, directly we are seeing application layer. The reason being, this is with respect to TCP/IP model. So in the case of TCP/IP model, application layer, session layer, and the presentation layer, so application plus session plus presentation layer are grouped together as one layer. That is, the functionality of all these layers are grouped together in the case of TCP/IP model. In the case of OSI model, what happens is they are all written or displayed separately. So first and foremost, the application layer, what is the main functionality of application layer? Application layer in the OSI model, so if we are writing the layers in this way, or this is from bottom to top, so this is the first top layer, then second is the session and presentation, then transportation layer, network, data link layer, and the physical layer is the bottommost layer. Now we have seen the functionalities of each and every layer in detail in every unit respectively. Now for application layer, as you can notice over here, it is the closest layer to the user. So whenever the user is transferring data or sending data through a network, then the user will handle the application layer or interact with the application layer. And the application layer programs are based on client and server model. So now the first and foremost thing, when we look at every chapter, we see the functionalities of each of them. So here we will look at the functionalities of application layer. So for that, it allows user to access, retrieve, and manage files. So basically, we can say that as file management. Then it provides mail services. That is, it provides the basis for email forwarding storage facilities. After that, it is good for the file transfer protocols. So here it comes in file management. Then it provides for a virtual terminal. Suppose remote logging in, if you want to do that, is with the help of application layer. So virtual terminal. So in addition to about these three functionalities, it also provides the directory services. So these are the important ones, but it also provides directory services, remote job entry, that is remote logging in and doing entries, graphics, information communication, and so on. So in the case of application layer, the most important topics that we will be seeing are the DNS, email, SNMP, and Bluetooth. So these are the topics that we will be seeing in application layer. So unit 5 actually comprises of two topics. First is the application layer and second is the basics of cryptography. So basic concepts of cryptography is the second half of unit 5. Here, in the case of application layer, the protocol provides rules for communication between two applications. So suppose if you are transferring a Word file from one system to another, then what happens is, to ensure smooth communication, that is, if the sender is sending a file, the receiver must be able to read that file, right? So the application layer protocols are implemented on the source host and the destination host must be the same. So if you are doing file transferring, then the receiver must be able to read the messages. So here, this is the first part, which is the application layer. Now, what do you mean by cryptography? Cryptography is basically a technique to secure your information. That is, instead of sending the information directly, now whatever till now in the 4 chapters that we have studied, we know that we are sending data over networks by using different protocols, and different layers have different functionalities. But here, are we supposed to send the data as it is? What if some other user interferes and changes the data? So in that case, this topic comes into use. That is cryptography. It secures the information, that is, it makes your information safe, and communication through use of codes. So it uses some kind of codes or data encryption. So here we have the topic data encryption, symmetric encryption. So it encrypts the data, and once the receiver receives the data, the receiver will decrypt the data. So it basically here the codes or whatever encryption you are doing, only the receiver or the person for which you are intending the data to be shared with, only that person can decrypt the data. That is how you use the concept of cryptography. Basically, what we are doing at the end, we are preventing unauthorized access. So here, prevention of unauthorized access is the important thing. That is, no other user except for the user who is supposed to use the data can access whatever whatever is being sent. So here, crypt, this word cryptography, crypt means hidden. So cryptography means hidden writing. Graph is writing, so cryptography is hidden writing. So that is what we will be seeing in this part of unit 5, which is encrypting the data by using some standard function, some standard algorithms and functions. So here in cryptography, the techniques which are used to protect information are obtained. So what kind of concepts will we use? We will use some kind of mathematical concepts, calculations, formulas. So this part of your computer networks will be a bit mathematical. That is, you will have some kind of formulas in the case of public key encryption, that is RSA algorithm. So and even hash function. So these topics will have some kind of mathematical concept, because we will be using calculations and some mathematical rules to encrypt the data and then decrypt it later. So these algorithms are used for cryptographic key generation. Now, whenever we are talking about cryptography, there is an important term which is known as a key. Now, what is the key? The key is the important part which encodes your data or encrypts your data, and then by using this key only, so it is similar to a lock and key. So here, if you're using this key, you can lock your important stuff, and the same way, if you're using the key, you can even unlock the data or decrypt the data. So this is the concept of cryptography. And why do we need cryptography? So cryptography is basically used for browsing, giving your confidential transactions for during your confidential transactions, such as credit card transactions. Now, in the age of internet and the age that we are living, it is very important to have data privacy. So you will be hearing this word a lot: data privacy, safeguarding the data. So in the case of in this generation, cryptography is a very important concept that is to be learned. So from this cryptography, we have then various other fields such as cryptocurrency, etc. Okay, so the second part of unit 5 will be based on this basic concept. Now, beginning with the application layer. First topic is domain name space. So DNS is basically a client server application. As I said, most of the application layer processes are based on client server. So this is also a client server application, and it provides name services for other applications. Now we will see first the DNS, how it works, and what is the functionality of DNS, why do we need to use DNS in the case of application layer. So basically, we use DNS so that we can use this in other applications. So in the case of application layer, whenever we are talking about application layer, there are two kinds of applications that we have. One is directly the applications that we can use, such as the file transfer protocol, Bluetooth, etc. And few of the applications of application layer help us to use it in other protocols. Okay, so DNS basically we don't need it directly, but the application layer needs it to solve our queries. Here, So there are several applications in the application layer of the internet model that follows this client and server procedure. Now, what is that? The client server programs can be divided into two categories. First is those directly used by the user. So few of the client server programs that are directly used by the users, and the second are those that support these programs. So they provide support for the directly used programs. So DNS is a supporting program. So DNS comes in this category. Email is directly used by the user, but DNS, what it does is it supports the directly used by the user programs. So now in this figure, it shows an example of how a DNS client server program can support an email program. Okay, so this figure is basically showing us how DNS is supporting email. A user of an email program may know the email address. Okay, so whenever we are sending email, we just know the email address, right? We do not know what is the IP address of that email address. So however, the IP protocol, so when we are sending this to the transport layer and all the layers which are below, then what they will need, they need the IP address. We don't need the name, but we need the IP address of this email address. The DNS client program, what it will do, so there are DNS client program and DNS server program. So the DNS client program will send a request to the DNS server program to map the email address to the corresponding IP address. So there is a mapping which is being done by the DNS server so that you can match the email address to the IP address. So to identify and the TCP/IP protocols use the IP address, which, so as we know, the IP addresses are unique. So IP addresses are unique to identify the connection of a host to the internet. This we have already studied in unit 3. So but why don't we use IP addresses? Because it is very difficult to remember the numbers, right? So suppose if you are remembering the email address and compared to the IP address, then it is easy to remember the name or the email address of a person than to remember a few bunch of numbers. Okay. So therefore, that is the reason we need a system that can map a name to an address or an address to a name. So basically, it does both the things. So first and foremost, it will map the name to an address, and it will also do the vice versa. That is, it will map the address to a name also. So when the internet was small, mapping was done by a host file. So earlier, when we did not have a large amount of computers on the network, then we used to have a host file. Now, what this host file had, this host file basically had only two columns. The two columns were, the first one was a name, the other was an address. So host file, it could store only, it was stored on a disk and we used to update it periodically. So suppose if a new email address is added or a new address is added, then again that address was added in the host file, and along with that address, the IP address was also added. So the host file used to be consulted. So suppose in the era when we did not have huge amount of computers, then we could simply refer to the host file and find the mapping and send our data to that corresponding computer. Now, in these days, basically in this decade, from the past 10 years, the number of computers have increased exponentially. So what happens in today's era, it is impossible to have one single host file. So suppose if we have one single host file and we keep on updating the numbers, then we will have up to billions of numbers, billions of names and mappings in that single host file. And even if you create that kind of host file, it will be difficult to search for the numbers. So what we do, so with it is very difficult to relate name and address and the vice versa scenario also. The first and foremost, the host file would be too large, so that is the first disadvantage. And it would be impossible to update the host file every time. Okay, so suppose if there is a change, then updating the host file will also be a huge task. and even searching the host file with so many address mappings will also be a difficult task. So the solution for this would be that to store the entire host file on a single computer. So suppose even if you have created this file, ignoring the disadvantages, and we are storing that file in a single computer, and we are allowing all these. So suppose this is your computer which is hosting this host file, and all the other systems on the network are able to access this computer. But suppose all of them are accessing it together, first and foremost, it will be creating huge traffic. And secondly, the system may shut down suddenly because of this traffic, right? So another solution which we are studying is the concept of DNS. So what we are doing, we are dividing this large amount of information into smaller parts and store each part on a different computer. So this information is being divided into small parts, and it is being stored in different computers. So in this method, the host that needs mapping can contact the, suppose one of the system needs mapping to send data to another system. So whichever system needs mapping, what it will do, it will contact the closest computer holding this information, the host file information, which is divided into parts. After that, what we do, the information is accessed, the mapping is done, and the data is sent. So this division of information and storing it on different computers is the concept of DNS in a very simple way. But the DNS basically has a lot of other complexities that we will be seeing. So there are various subtopics in this DNS. So we will be seeing that. First and foremost is the namespace. So to be unambiguous, that is to not cause confusion, the names assigned to machines must be carefully selected from a namespace. So what happens is there is a namespace so that there is no confusion among different computers, with complete control over the binding between the names and the IP address. So once you have selected a name, you have to have the mapping with the IP address, right? In other words, the names must be unique. So the names also should be unique, and it can be organized in two ways. So the namespace is usually organized in two ways. First is the flat namespace, and the other is the hierarchical namespace. So what is in the flat namespace and the hierarchical namespace? So flat namespace is basically a name is assigned to an address, and the name in the space is a sequence of characters. So suppose if we are using the flat namespace, then it is usually some kind of sequence of characters, and they do not have some common meaning, or they do not have any section. Okay, so why I'm talking about this meaning and section, we will understand when we will be studying hierarchical namespace. So let me just write it. Hierarchical namespace. So as I said, in the case of flat namespace, we are just writing a sequence of characters without any meaning given to the same. Now, what is the disadvantages of just writing random sequence of characters? It cannot be used in large networks such as the internet, because it must be centrally controlled to avoid ambiguity and duplication. So first and foremost, it cannot be used in large networks. Why? So the reason being, it may cause confusion, that is ambiguity, and it may be duplicated. Suppose you are using a series of random characters and the other person is using some other random characters, and this way there might be a chance of duplication. Now in the case of hierarchical namespace, another thing we have read is there is no common section, or that is, it does not have any meaning, no meaning, and there is no structure. Basically, let's say that it does not have any kind of structure. But what about hierarchical namespace? In the hierarchical namespace, each name is made up of several parts. So the name is made up of several parts. So this is what your internet namespace addresses are made up of. It uses the concept of hierarchical namespace. So the first part will organize the first part. So here the part is divided into the first part, which describes the nature of the organization, and the second part may define the name of the organization. Then the third part may have it can define the departments and so on. So it may have some kind of structure or meaning. So in this case, the authority who assigns and control the namespaces can be decentralized. So if you are giving some kind of meaning, then we can have a decentralized system, that is each and every department in an organization according to these rules can define their address or namespace. Okay. So a central authority can assign the part of the name that defines the nature, and the responsibility of the rest of the other departments is to assign themselves a namespace according to the rules of the central authority. Now, what will the organization do? It will add suffixes or prefixes. So it will add something at the beginning or at the end to define its host or resources. So to define their own computers, they will add either suffixes or prefixes. So the management of this organization who are using this kind of namespace do not need to worry, because accordingly they will decide on the prefixes and suffixes. So for example, we have two colleges. Yes, so in this example, we are taking two colleges and a company. And for all these colleges and the company, they have a computer by the name user1. Okay, all the colleges, the two colleges and the company have a computer by the name user1, or we can simply say user. Let's not consider the number, user. So the first college is given a name by the central authority such as islec.edu. Okay, so in this case, what will be the name of the okay, so this is the first college. For them, they have given the name given by the central authority. So this name is being decided by the central authority. And for the second college, what is the name being given? For the second college, the name is given as BREC. So for the second college, yeah, we have written in small, brec.edu. Okay, and the company which has the same user computer, it has been given the common or the central authority name by smart.com. Okay, so when these organizations add the name user, what will the address become? user.islec.edu, user.brec.edu, and user.smart.com. So basically the names are unique, right? Why are the names unique? Because this part, the name which is being decided by the central authority, is unique. So that is the reason the central authority controls only part of the name and not the whole, and accordingly we can assign each system's address to that part of the name. So this is with respect to the hierarchical namespace. Now, so to have a hierarchical namespace, a domain namespace was designed. In this design, the names are defined in an inverted tree structure with the root at the top, and the tree can have only 128 levels. So first will be the level 0, which is the root, and to level 127. So now how will it be? So suppose this is the first level, which is the level 0, and at the second level we have different labels. So here we have ARPA, COM, EDU, ORG, AD, ZW, etc. Okay, so each node in the tree has a label, which is a string with maximum of 63 characters. So each node will have a label or a name attached to it. The name size will be of 63 characters. So the root label, which is here, is a null string or an empty string. And DNS, what it requires that the children of the node have different labels. So here, suppose we are considering this node or this COM node, then the children should have all different labels, or the labels name of this COM branch, COM node should be unique, right? So the domain name now, each node in the tree has a domain name. A full domain name will be the sequence of labels separated by a dot. So suppose if we have in this case here, I'm having user and this is smart. So user.smart.com. So the domain names are always read from the node up to the root, and the last label is the label of the root. So here we will add. This means that a full domain name always ends in this null, which means the last character is a dot because the null string is nothing. So here we are seeing few of the domain names that we have. Suppose if we are using this Challenger, here the domain name is Challenger, then we have ATC, FHDA, EDU, and the root. So this is the label. All of these are labels. And what will be the domain name in this case? Challenger.atc.fhda.edu. Similarly, for ATC, we will have in this way, we just have to travel from this bottom node till the top node, which is the root node, and end with the root node is with a dot. Okay. So basically, and each of these nodes, EDU, COM nodes, are specifically defined by the central authority itself. So the central authority has various meanings for these nodes. The COMs, the first level 1 nodes are given by the central authority itself, and accordingly, all the other organization will decide on their label nodes. Okay. So this is with respect to the domain namespace, and we will continue with the next topic, emails, in the next class.